Thank you, Ms. Hanif. Ladies and gentlemen, the next session will have 2 lectures addressed by 2 professors from Sri Lanka. Before I invite the first speaker, may I remind one thing? Because some delegates are leaving for airport shortly, they wanted to have a chance to listen as many lectures as possible. So we humbly request you, the rest of the speakers, to keep their presentation as short as possible. Now it is my pleasure to invite the first speaker, Professor Dr. M.A.N. Shukri, to address us Islamic religious and cultural approach for peace. Please welcome.
Let me at the outset convey my sincere thanks for giving me this opportunity of exchanging some of my views regarding a very important and relevant subject today. This conference is being held at an important moment which calls for mutual understanding, tolerance and coexistence between religions. This important need is being felt today than ever before due to increasing ethnic conflicts, religious strifes, bloodshed and violence that are posing a serious challenge to the stable social order and security of human life. The time has come upon all of us who believe in the dignity of man and universal brotherhood of humanity, ethical and moral values that are common to all the major religions of the world, to engage in dialogue in order to make a sincere effort to discover the shared values and commonalities such as love and brotherhood, respect and tolerance, love and mercy, freedom and justice among religions. It is on the basis of these shared values that we can evolve a framework for peaceful coexistence. I wish to present Islamic perspective of peace and pluralism in a very summarized manner. Islam essentially means peace. The very word Islam itself is derived from the word silm, which means peace. The way to attain and promote peace, it is to eliminate, the only way to attain peace and to promote it is to eliminate mutual suspicions and prejudices among different religions and ethnic groups. Most of these suspicions and prejudices are due to ignorance. It is through learning about each other's beliefs, way of life, cultural traditions that mutual trust could be created among the people. Islam lays great stress on the unity of mankind. According to Quran, mankind is a single nation. Human beings are created from a single soul and they are descended from the same parents. In this sense, common origin of humanity is one of the important principles of Islam. The fundamental belief of Islam is unity of God or oneness of God. From this concept of unity of God or oneness of God logically proceeds the concept of unity of humanity. If God is one, His creations are one. It is in this sense the Prophet of Islam said, Al-Khalqu Iyarullah, the entire creation is God's family. There is a verse in Quran which accepts diversity as a reality. It says, O mankind, surely we have created you from a male and a female and made you into different nations and groups so that you may identify each other. There are 3 important things to be observed in this Quranic verse. First, this verse is not addressed to Muslims but to entire mankind. It says, O mankind. Second, the creation of humanity into distinct groups speaking different languages, having different colors, belonging to different ethnicities are the will of God. The main objective of this will is to identify each other, lita'arafu, so that you may understand and know each other. This reference was made in the morning also. As you enter a flower garden, you see different shapes of flowers, flowers of different smells and different colors. This diversity of the flowers in the garden adds light and luster and beauty to the garden. In the same way, humanity is enriched by the diversity of different people belonging to different ethnicities, cultural traditions, speaking different languages. It is in this diversity we have to seek unity. And for the promotion of peace and harmony, the recognition of diversity is absolutely essential. Islam, in its long history, had never attempted to obliterate the identities and individualities of the people and cast them into one single mold. It at all times recognized these diversities that enriched Islamic culture and civilization. And Islam is a religion that speaks about tolerance and understanding. When Prophet migrated from Mecca to Medina, in Medina he encountered a society, so-called pluralistic society. In the society of Medina, there were Arabs, there were Jews, and there were other tribes. And Prophet, in order to bring reconciliation, or rather to ensure the understanding between the various ethnic groups and religious groups, signed a pact with all these people, ensuring their basic rights and freedom. In fact, Jews were recognized by this charter, so-called Charter of Medina, as an autonomous community in Medina. In the same way, a few years after the signing of this pact, the Christians from Najran, a neighboring territory of Medina, came to meet the Prophet in order to find out their status in the emerging Muslim state. With them, Prophet signed an agreement which ensured it follows as follows. To the Christians from Najran, the security of God and the pledge of his Prophet are extended for their lives, religion, and property. To the present as well as the absent, there shall be no interference in their faith and observance of religious practices, no any change in their rights or privileges. No bishop shall be removed from his position, no any monks from his monastery. They shall continue to enjoy their rights. No image or cross shall be destroyed, and they shall not be oppressed. This was the charter given by the Prophet to the Christians of Najran. And in the history of Islam, there are many instances in which non-Muslims have been enjoying equal rights along with the Muslims, and Islam has been very, very tolerant towards others. Islam is against oppression or any form of unjust wars. Though today Islam is being identified as a religion of violence and bloodshed, Islam is essentially peace. According to a Quranic verse which says, La ikrah fid din, there is no compulsion in religion, says the Quran. Quran speaks about the establishment of justice as a great virtue. Tolerance is absolutely essential for achieving peace. Religious tolerance is not achieved by reducing all religions to one denomination, or by explaining away their differences in beliefs and practices as accidents of historical development. Tolerance in respect of religions involves the capacity to confess the differences and diversities as real, basic, and fundamental, and then to make sincere efforts to rise above these differences, identifying the shared values and commonalities. Islam and other religions like Buddhism, Christianity, and Hinduism share some common values that could form the strong basis for dialogue between religions. Generally speaking, compassion and mercy, love and kindness to humanity, patience and forgiveness, charity and generosity are some of the important values shared by all these religions. The Prophet of Islam is reported to have said as follows: have mercy on those who are on the earth, and Allah who is on the heaven will have mercy on you. Compassion and mercy is central to Christianity. In the same way, compassion and mercy are central to Buddhism. Buddhism places much emphasis on metta, kindness, karuna, compassion, mudita, sympathetic joy, and upeka, equanimity, as a means of avoiding resentment. According to Buddha, love and compassion will be generated only in the mind which is free from anger and hatred. It is anger and hatred that leads to tension and conflict. Dhammapada stresses to keep the mind free from hatred. Dhammapada says, he abused me, he struck me, he robbed me, and in those who harbor such thoughts, hatred will never cease. He abused me, he struck me, he robbed me. In those who does not harbor such thought, hatred will cease. This was the teaching of the Buddha. Quran invites us to be the believers to respond to an evil act with something better. And enmity with love. Quran says, no can goodness can and evil could be equal. Repel what is better, and then will he between whom and the hot hatred become as it were friends. And no one will be granted such goodness except those who exercise patience and self-restraint. Life of Prophet presents to us number of instances in which he exerted all his efforts to bring reconciliation and peace among those who are in conflict. When Prophet migrated to Medina, the whole city was on the verge of major conflict between the tribes of Aus and Khazraj, and Prophet brought reconciliation between these two factions and avoided a major crisis. Quran refers to this incident in the following verse, and remember with gratitude Allah's favor on you, for you were enemies and you are on the verge of ruin, and Allah created love among you and you became brethren. And he saved you from it. His signs clear to you that you may be guided. Buddhi Sutta Nipatika contains the following beautiful wish of Buddha for the universal peace. May all be blessed with peace always. All creations, big and strong, all creations, great and small, creatures seen or unseen, dwelling afar or near, born or awaiting death, may all be pleased with peace. As mother with her own life from shields, from hurting her own son, his own child, let there be all embracing love for all the universe. In fact, I have been asked to be brief. Therefore, I am cutting short my speech, giving you only the most important points. Anyhow, my speech has been distributed so that you may refer to it. Tolerance, mutual understanding, seek unity in diversity, drawing inspiration from the teachings of religions on the basis of the shared values and commonalities among them is the only way to ensure a peaceful and harmonious social order. Only through dialogue and interaction between the religions that we could achieve this objective. Declaration of the Principle of Tolerance, proclaimed and signed by the member states of UNESCO on 16 November 1995, defines the meaning of tolerance and provides a very broad definition as follows. It says, tolerance is respect, acceptance and appreciation of the rich diversity of our world's culture, our forms of experience and ways of being human. It is fostered by knowledge, openness, communication, and freedom of thought, conscience, and belief. Tolerance is harmony in difference. It is not only a moral duty, it is also a political and legal requirement. Tolerance, the virtue that makes peace possible, contributes to the replacement of the culture of war by culture of peace. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor M.A.N. Shukri. The next presentation is Christian Religious and a Cultural Approach for Peace. May I call upon Reverend Reid, Shelton, Fernando to address us. Please welcome Reverend.
Venerable Master Chin Kun, other venerables, Reverend from the Mahasangha, mighty priests, and the general members, ambassadors from UNESCO. Now, since you have also the PowerPoint presentation, also handouts, I may not go through all the details, but I must also state that I was not, only today I was able to attend this, so I didn't know about the whole setup about interfaith peace forum or interfaith dialogue as well. So I also bring greetings from the Catholic Church in Sri Lanka to all of you, and I'm happy to present this Christian perspective because Christianity also is a religion of peace, which we'll see in all this. I think can go fast. The introduction is there. This is a current topic because the religions have not succeeded in the realization of peace, even though we speak of peace. And it's true that in the recent past there are peace initiatives being ventured. When I was in Philippines on 15th of October, there were two warring parties came together, signed a peace document. And also misconception of violence, also a war will bring peace. There is a misconception. And religion and culture are also interlinked. I've said peace is a way of life, a spirituality. It's part and parcel of Christians. We greet each other peace. Then there are elements of biblical peace. The key word is shalom. It is wholeness, well-being, soundness, and prosperity. It's a gift from God, who is God of peace, righteousness. In the Old Testament, the key event is the deliverance from bondage and slavery. The story of Exodus, where people were suffering from the hands of Pharaoh, they shouted to their God, please do help us. Then the plea of suffering people, and then Exodus chapter 3, God responds, not to the people, but to elect a person. Moses was given the leadership, and it culminates in the covenant. In the New Testament, is the peace is a greeting. It's the absence of strife among individuals and nations. Peace creates community and fellowship. The preaching of Jesus, we have several instances. Glory to God in the highest and earth, when Jesus was born in Bethlehem. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Blessed are the peacemakers, the Sermon on the Mount, for they will be called children of God. Then we have the preaching of Jesus, the Sermon on the Mount again, whole life of Jesus Christ through his preaching and life-giving. And Matthew chapter 5, 38 to 43, there are three instances: turning the other cheek. When you slap a person, turn the other. And it's not easy to understand that, because if you turn the other side, either you use the left hand or the back of the hand, which is the person who gave the slap is being challenged. The returning the inner garment, there's a tradition in Judea, they borrow garments from each other. Then they have to return it on the same day. When that person didn't return it, they go before the magistrate. When this person who borrowed the garment was there, he was charged. Then what he did was, he gave the inner garment back to not only the borrowed garment, but also the inner garment as well. And the third one was the military. Military people were carrying arms from one center to another. And then they forced the passerby and to carry this. Then when he carried 1 mile or 1 kilometer, he said, I will take another kilometer. Then the soldier was caused panic in him, and he was really uncertain about his situation. So the summary of that text is there. Peace is not taking revenge. Violence is rejected. Instead, what Jesus proposed in this episode is active non-violence. Volunteering to carry the extra mile. No political or ideological underpinnings. So in the summary of the teachings of Jesus, Jesus proposes a strategy of non-violence. It is compassion to the one to the needy, and it is, as I said, active non-violence. And next slide, summary of the New Testament teaching on peace. I don't know whether I'm going too fast. Yes. Loving the enemy, forgiveness, compassion, and he himself shows the way. When he was being crucified, he said, and dying on the cross, and he said all those things, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. So, and he spoke of the kingdom of God, which is not merely the food and drink, but righteousness and peace and joy in the Holy Spirit, as St. Paul would say. Then I have given a historical development in 313 Edict of M.A.N, where Christians got freedom, and at the end of persecution, next year it's 1,700 years, Christianity becoming the state religion. The impact of freedom won began to wane, its impact, because Christianity was declared state religion. Then they began to persecute others as well. Then in the history of the church, we have St. Augustine of Hippo proposed the just war theory, which is not merely every war is justified, but there are conditions laid down. I'm not going to relate all these conditions. And St. Thomas Aquinas in the 13th century laid down conditions for just war, good and just purpose, properly instituted authority, peace must be the central motivation. Then the next one, we have a further distinction. Next, go to very recent history. After the two world wars, we have the great declaration, UDHR, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, to prevent any crimes against humanity. And this document is 30 aspirations, and then there are other two bills of rights, UN Declaration, UN Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and the other UNECSCR, Economic, Social, Cultural Rights, and which was they agreed on 1966, but the date of the approval was another 10 years later. All these three UDHR, UNCCPR, or ICESCR, International Covenant on Economic and Social Cultural Rights, all these things are called Bill of Rights. And both ICCPR and ICCR are based on the dignity of the human person. And it is to tackle the issue of freedom from fear and freedom from want, to respect the rights of the individual and the community. Now, Christian reaction to human rights, we have the beginning of Vatican II. In Vatican II, started exactly 15 years ago in 1962, 11th of October. Just 9 days after Vatican II, there was a message to humanity on world peace and social justice. That the first time the Catholic Church issued a statement to the people of all good faith, people to the whole world. And this being continued further in later documents of Vatican II. Then Pope John the 23rd in 1963, there was an encyclical, that the circular letter of the Pope to various people. This encyclical was also issued to people of goodwill. It's called Pacem Terris, Peace on Earth. It accepts human rights, and that peace is not the end of war. Peace is not achieved by war, and peace based on justice as well. In Vatican II, there were 16 documents, and the last document is called Church in the Modern World. It's termed as Gaudium et Spes. There's a special chapter, chapter 5, fostering of peace and the promotion of the community of nations, and speaks of nature of peace, avoidance of war, including the savagery of war, total war, arms race, international actions. Now, since you have the document, you can go through the internet as well. Then the Church in the Modern World, section 2, building up the international community, causes and cures, international organizations, cooperation in economic affairs, duty of Christians to support an effective presence of the Catholic Church. Then immediately after Vatican II, just 18 months after the Pope Paul VI, he issued an encyclical called The Development of the People. He actually defined the Christian definition of development. Development is not mere economic development. Development is the good of the whole person, whole man or whole person, and of every person. It's not merely a limited group, but everyone has to be developed. And at the end of that, he stated, development is the new name for peace. So the Christian teaching on peace could be summarized, the last two slides. Peace is linked to justice, especially social justice, which includes all the nuances of justice. Justice today is traditionally defined as community justice, distributive justice, legal justice, social justice. But now, in the recent past, it has come to economic justice, it has come to climate justice, environmental justice, it has come to retributive justice, and it is also as restorative justice. In Sri Lanka, when we speak of reconciliation, this has to come, the restorative justice. So everybody has to be involved in this, realizing justice for all. So when we speak of justice today in Sri Lanka, we also have the present LLRC document issued last year, 16th of December, tabled in Parliament. And the recommendations, 285 recommendations in Chapter 9 is very important. And probably in the budget to come this week, probably the monies are set apart and the government has an action plan for that. We hope things will be regularized for the people, all peoples, not only for the majority, but also for the minority as well. So the peace is not merely the end of war. Peace has to develop justice, human rights for each and every person of the country. Peace is not something negative. Peace is not denial or destruction of life, but life-giving and promotes life. It is environmental friendly. Now, the last one is thanks, but whatever it is, I also gathered as I was here from this morning, is also interreligious dialogue. Dialogue often is a language spoken by the not by the majority, but by the minority. The majority people, whether we are Christians in a majority country, Christian majority, they hardly speak of dialogue. But of course, Paul VI, in 1964, immediately after his becoming Pope, he wrote an encyclical on dialogue. And this dialogue, later the church developed as dialogue of life, dialogue of action, dialogue of experts, and dialogue of sharing religious experiences. Dialogue of life is a common thing that we can do in people working together in various institutions, people meeting, and we had enough experiences today sharing about dialogue of life. Dialogue of action comes in when it's a social issue, when it's violation of injustices, the various injustices do happen in society. When all religions come together and act, that's dialogue of action. Then dialogue of experts, it's limited to people who are knowledgeable about their own religion. And also there is the fourth aspect of dialogue of sharing experiences. The experiences of prayer in all religions, commonalities can come together. Dialogue also is a conversation. It is a conversation to dispel myths also among people. Now, in this presentation of dialogue in our country, we have various myths and misbeliefs. We also go back in history and call answers against Christians. We also need to dispel that kind of myth today. We are not responsible for what the colonials did. We find sometimes people harp on those elements to attack, to instill fear among the religious groups. There may be certain fundamentalist groups who go beyond some of these elements. We need to dialogue with the fundamentalists as well. So that's an openness that we need to create. Maybe fundamentalists with their approaches, whether Christian fundamentalists or fundamentalists in other religions, need to have dialogue with them to understand them so that they also may understand the various religious groups. I hope, thank you, I conclude this, and thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Thank you very much.